right, welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. Thank you so much to all of you guys who are already watching and sending in your feedback. Mazi, I need to shout out these guys. Someone here SMS'd in at 7:57 a.m. As in, we've not even started the show. That's about 2.5 minutes into the show, saying you love it. Asante sana. Please send me in your name. I'd love to call you one of these days and give you a wake-up call. But also, I do want to appreciate Marianne W. Kangete, aka Shix Nix from Roiro. You say, I didn't know all those kinds of diseases are found in the river. Have a nice day, Joyce. Thank you so much for that. Vicky, you also texted in already at about 8:10 saying you're Vicky and you want to say the government should at least find a way for those people drinking water from Tana River. Thank you guys for your comments and your feedback on that. Certainly sounds that a few of you are as bothered as I am that is what is in our water sources. Gentlemen, I don't know which water you guys are drinking. Are you concerned about that?
A lot more.
A lot more.
Yeah, very.
All right. Well, let me welcome my guest in studio right now. I have with me Kelvin Muriuki, who's a financial expert, and Stephen Kwe, who's a financial analyst. Karibu sana to the show.
Thank you very much.
And what we want to talk about right now is Kenyans' appetite for costly loans. All right. We live in an age where credit is so easily accessible. Digital credit is so easily accessible in this country. But a lot of people are actually drowning in the interest rates and all that they have to pay back to these apps, these banking services. And we want to know, is this really the best way to go about it? And so you can send in your feedback and your comments to 22299. Let me know what your experience is with them. Perhaps you've taken a loan and you found yourself slapped with some very heavy fines and interest rates. I'd love to hear your experience, as well as on Facebook at Switch TV Kenya, and on Twitter at Switch TV Kenya, and on Instagram at Switch TV KE. The hashtag is Full Circle with Joyce. All right, gentlemen. So when we begin talking about digital credit, maybe let's first just define what we mean by digital credit for our viewers. Most of us know it to come through our mobile phones, but there's different ways in which digital credit could be accessed. So maybe we can start with you.
Okay, when you talk about digital credit, it's more to do with the non-physical application that most people usually do the conventional way, that you go to the banks and actually fill in a form and all that. Mm-hmm. So when it's digital, somewhat it's a bit aloof, if I may say, mm-hmm. and you'll go through the various, if it's a mobile phone or probably even the laptop that you have, as long as you're accessible to our internet, you're able to converse via the lending institution digitally. That's what you actually get to talk about, digital lending.
Right.
Yes.
So my caller this morning, or the person we called to wake up this morning, she talked about, I love what she said, that it is a necessary evil. And I don't know, Steve, what you think about that comment. Is it necessary, first of all, to have digital credit in this day and age in the forms that is available to us?
Yeah, it should be appreciated.
Okay, appreciated.
Yeah,
okay.
it should be appreciated. So most of us get into debt simply because we think we're trying to sort something. But see, when you get into debt without having a plan, then that now becomes the evil.
Right.
Yeah, so her point is really valid.
Right.
You need money to move around. You need money to do your things. Mm-hmm. But then again, if you're borrowing without a reason, then it doesn't really work.
Right. Mm. But beyond the borrowing and trying to have a debt and borrowing without a reason, there's also a question as far as if these platforms are actually even safe. Like, what are the risk factors beyond one's ability to control how they manage their debt? There's a lot of questions as far as the interest rates applied to these digital credit solutions. And I don't know what your viewpoint would be on that, Kelvin. Do they offer sort of, I know it's for convenience, and so there's definitely a very high premium that's applied to it, but maybe you can walk us through some of the risk factors.
I think it's something the government has actually noticed. It's a bit, there's no regulation per se when you come to some of these forms of lending, because the banks are very well regulated with the central bank. Then you have this micro sort of lending operating within that space, that you have the digital lenders as well. Mm-hmm. And that is a nuance in the industry. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to actually regulate and put their fingers more into who is actually lending. And I think even the governors, central bank governor, was complaining the other day because some of them are very intrusive. That for at times that when you don't pay, they actually go to the extent of calling your relatives, in-laws. You know, it's a bit crazy, but it's a bit in that gray area where it's not really farmed up, and those are the issues probably that bedevil now that industry, because if it's not per se regulated as such, then you have a few probably rogue people, because I think there are about 200 of them right now, digital lenders.
Right.
There are quite many. And then you have a few of them who are not, of course, operating professionally, if I may say. So then you have issues of privacy. How do they even go to the extent of calling your relatives, people in your phone book? How do they even access your phone? There are privacy issues that actually surround that. So, and until when the regulators actually put their fingers into that particular space, then you would have at least even the interest rates. You see, there is a capping of interest rate at 14%.
Right.
How do you explain some of them offering at 200% per annum? But it is necessary to have a loan in certain scenarios for emergency, like what the caller was saying. Because if you have a life and death situation and you are facing a hospital bill and you need to pay probably like 10,000, and it's easily accessible on your phone, then you have no choice. You do it. You will come even and check the interest rate later on.
Right.
You'll be like, okay, I took a loan, 10,000, but it's paying 200%. I sorted my issue, which is a life and death situation. So I think we may need to have that conversation more amongst ourselves, the regulators as well, so that we can be able to have at least some control within that space.
Right.
Yes.
Let's bring you in, Steve, as we talk about this some more. And are there any other risk factors that come to your mind in addition to what he's pointed out, what Calvin has pointed out?
He actually pointed something very interesting. You see, when you're taking out a loan digitally, there's those pop-ups that keep coming on your phone or on your machine. You keep clicking OK because you're in a rush to get the money, not knowing you're allowing that particular app to access your details. So when you do that, your risk exposure is very, very high. So then, in my opinion, as he says, that should be regulated.
Yeah.
That should be regulated. Actually, those pop-ups are not supposed to be there.
True.
They just need to put up necessary pop-ups.
Right.
You're not going to call my father to tell them, hey, Steve, you... No, you're not.
Well, let's talk about the privacy question, which you actually already raised, Kelvin. Yes. But there's an article here by CGAP who did a study actually on digital credit in partnership with FSD Kenya. And what they did say was for some of these, I don't want to name them, but for some of these platforms, I'll call them, you need to download their apps from the Google Play Store. Yeah. And then that will link your app to your social media account, because that's how you log in, through your Facebook or through your Twitter, through your Pinterest. And then you need to grant the app permission to use social media data, GPS data, SMS and call logs, contact lists, and handset details from, they're going to be accessing all of that from your phone. Others actually then use algorithms to analyze that data and determine a credit score and the loan size. Many others use phone data as well to determine your loan sizes. So kuna mtu mali anaangalia umetuma M-Pesa mara ngapi this month, and that's going to determine, your loan size. And it's an interesting question of, okay, perhaps that person at a bank, if they don't have other forms of collateral or something else to take to the bank, is that an appropriate measure of being able to, and is that appropriate looking at someone's personal, financial history through their M-Pesa? Is that what we sort of just have to deal with now for us to say, this is where digital credit is taking us, this is the digital age, that's the price we have to pay as consumers?
I think it depends from which angle you look at it, because some of the partakers of these loans, they don't mind that as long as they're going to get that money. It is not something that is, of course, conventionally speaking, it is not right that you have to go to other things, other platforms that I have not disclosed or allowed the intrusion per se to that extent, so that I may be able to qualify for that. Some even do not know actually, because you see, when you are picking the loan, you just tick off a checkbox, but you've not read through the terms and conditions. And again, that's another misgiving that people have. The partakers of these loans, they do not go through the terms and conditions. They do not know actually exactly what they're exposed to. And with some regulation that we are talking about, you may have to deal with an aspect that before somebody takes up a loan, they actually understand, they consent to all that. I think if you let someone in your house, you've already opened the door. You are sure that this person is coming into your house. You have consented to it. So probably the issue is having that knowledge that actually these people can actually access to this level, and are you okay with it? Do you agree? And until that element of being able to realize that actually you have the right to say no or yes, or even knowing at all, going through those terms and conditions, then that area will still have some thorny issues because I can almost say probably 80% of them do not know what actually they're signing up for. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And before we diversify into other forms of loans, because this is about Kenyans' general appetite towards loans, I want to point out some few things concerning digital credit, and specifically some of the rates that we're seeing, the time frames that we're seeing. So with one provider, they use an app. Their loan ranges between 250 shillings to 50,000 shillings. Their interest rate is 1% to 14% as monthly rates. That's an APR of 12% to 170%. Just explain to us, our financial expert, what an APR is, first of all, and then tell us if these numbers are reasonable. And this is within a repayment rate of 14 days to 365 days. What is APR?
That's an annual rate that actually you're looking at, because when you have it on a monthly basis of 12%, then what you're saying is that you multiply that by 12 to be able to get an annual rate that you're going to have for that particular loan.
Which would be 144.
Which would be 144. And that is normally not digested per se by the partakers. And you could see that they're telling you you'll pay back 500 shillings, but conventional, when you crunch down the numbers, it actually translates to 200 or even 150%, which is crazy. I mean, you can, these are just Shylocks who are actually operating on digital
platforms. Because even with the central bank's capping of the interest rate, it is 14% per annum.
Yes, it's per annum.
So for the whole year, it is 14%. Yet one of these providers who uses an app, you can borrow between 250 to 50,000 shillings. In a month, you could actually pay 14% in interest.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
It is, and that's part of the other clamor that we actually, that needs to be regulated.
Yeah.
Exactly the same way banks that would at one point charge 30-something%, the bank, central bank came and said, no, this has to be regulated. It's a whole issue whether the cap should be there or not, but at least there should be some regulation, because when you are lending at 200%, when you're lending at 100%, I think when you have that on an annual basis, it's somewhat putting people on the chalk, and you're actually creating a downward spiral, because you find the same person who will take another loan to now repay this loan so that he can continue. So you're digging a hole to fill another, and that is what is actually causing the whole bubbling up.
Steve, there's another here that uses USSD, and you can borrow between 500 bob and 13,000 bob, but they apply a rate of 0.5% daily, and they only give you 7 to 28 days, coming to an APR. Just give me a guess. Give me a guess, because this number is so ridiculous. But give me a range that you think possibly.
Annually?
Yeah.
Close to 100.
It's actually almost 200. It's 183%.
Yes.
Hey guys, I really hope that you guys are reading the terms and conditions of what you're doing, you know, as you're taking. You absolutely should, because if you've borrowed 500 bob, by the time you're paying almost 200% on that 500 bob.
That's a rip-off.
It's such a rip-off, guys. And you just have to be aware as consumers of what you're doing. There's another one that charges 310 to 621%, also through a SIM toolkit, and you're only borrowing 500 to 10,000 bob. I mean, so by the time you're borrowing, you know, 1,000,000 shillings, what are you going to be doing?
You go to jail for no reason.
You go to jail. Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, guys, I'm not even kidding, but There's several of these providers, others up to 521%, 365%. It's only that, we can't name names here right now, but certainly I think the lesson for all of us here is to be very careful as far as digital credit, understand the risk factors involved as far as your privacy, social media. If people are calling your dad, that's a big concern. Be aware of that as a consumer and what you're allowing in. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion. We're going to diversify it to even talk about regular loans and how Kenyans are partaking in those. But I also have a question about for young men, those of you who are borrowing on your phones to do sports betting. It's a real issue, and we're going to be talking about it when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. Asanteni sana for being a part of the show. Thank you for your company and your comments. I do appreciate every single one of you guys. Let me shout out a few of you who are watching. Mama Prince Queen, you're tuned in from Mombasa. Thank you so much. Selassie Mpenda Reggae, you're watching us from Embu. I have Moses Mwash, you're tuned in from All Kalau. Para Ya White, you say you're always watching. Thank you very much for that. Of course, you can send in your feedback and your comments to 22999. Let us know what your take is on this topic for the day. Viewpoint discussion here on digital credit and Kenyans' appetite for costly loans. And just before we went on break, I was sharing with us some of the different providers and their different rates. And we've just come to that conclusion that, Maze, these rates are really, really high. And you as a consumer need to be very aware of that. But of course, it did raise a question about the ignorance that a lot of us do have as we just sign up for these things. Sometimes we're in such desperate situations, we're so ready to find a quick buck, we don't pay attention to what's actually happening or what the implications of it would be. And as we were talking, there's a lot of people who have found themselves unable to pay back that 5,000 bob. I mean, we're not even talking about billions. We're talking about unable to pay back 5,000 bob, 2,000 bob. And they find themselves then listed on the CRB, the Credit Reference Bureau. And I think it was you, Steve, or Kelvin, who said 500,000 Kenyans are currently listed on the CRB. And that means you cannot access any more credit.
True.
You're blacklisted, basically. Talk to us then about who should be safeguarding Kenyans where this is concerned.
I think the bigger arm, anyone who's controlling about money flow and how it goes about in the economy, is central bank. They may need to have a department or an arm within it that will be able to look at this digital lending just specifically for it. If you leave it just like a free market, then you'll affect the dynamics or the simple economics that actually go around an economy. The person who's supposed to go and buy something from the shop, they cannot be able to do that because they have to pay a loan. So essentially, it affects the economy in full, in totality. And the person who should regulate is central bank. They should actually just focus on that element and focus on that particular space of lending and not leave it just like on a free market or a free fall, because that now means that that person who's negatively listed, they cannot be able to get a loan from the conventional bank. Right. If a conventional bank does not give loan because you are blacklisted from a digital lending, then you affect the economics that actually come to the profits that come from the bank, the ability to actually invest within the country. It's a whole ripple effect that needs to be looked at in a holistic manner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, let's talk about multiple borrowing. What has tended to happen is when one person, is maxing out on one app, they will switch over to another app and borrow from there. Sometimes they're borrowing from there to repay a loan from a different app. And so you find a lot of people are juggling 3, 4, 5 different loans. And there's also now what are called temptation and push loans. And let me just read this. Research and evidence from behavioral economics shows that borrowing through a mobile phone feels different than borrowing through a more traditional in-person avenues. It's actually more tempting, they say, to borrow through your mobile phone. Some lenders have turned to push loans, which is blasting unsolicited messages to potential borrowers, saying things like, you have qualified for XX shillings to accept your loan, call or SMS this number. So people are literally being baited into taking loans that they probably cannot afford.
You're right. Multiple borrowing is driven by something. If I want, say my bills are up to 50,000, and that is because of probably peer pressure and economic situations and my earnings. So my bills push me. Then I'll look for all these, the ones that I can install, the ones that I can use the USSD to borrow. So if I borrow from X, then I take 30 days to pay this, then I'll be able to borrow from Y. Then if Y is giving me a lot more, then I'll use Y to pay for X. So I'll keep on having a cycle. It actually improves my cash flow, but then it doesn't really help me because I'll keep spiraling around the same thing, which is debt. Yes.
Right. And let's talk about sports betting then. And let me not say it's a men thing before people say now a boy child. But okay, I'm sure there are plenty of women as well who partake in sports betting.
They're good at it.
They're very good at it. Oh, wow. Okay. But there's actually I believe it's about maybe 3% from a previous FSD study, maybe around 2017, saying that maybe 3% or more at least are actually borrowing digital credit to fund sports betting. Does that concern you guys at all? Again, talking about our economy, the effects of it on the economy, and because a lot of these are people who don't have jobs, right? So you're borrowing, and it's not being funded by any other source of income. It's only going in one direction. Even the effects of sport betting, on a young economy, particularly in a young workforce. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
My take on that, I think we have seen a few news lately regarding the sport, or rather the betting field. The government probably has finally realized that this is something that's actually affecting the people, the economy as well. I think there was some study that was done. They are probably making about, in totality, they are probably making about 5 billion per month. And this money, so to say, has been collected from small people in the village. A student was supposed to go to school. They actually use that money in belief that they are going to make more or 10 times more.
Yeah.
So it is just collected all over the country from people's phones. And when you look at where that money is going, most of it is going foreignly, it's going back abroad. In other words, it's like you're having somebody who's coming to Kenya, is somewhat like a tout, picking money, and taking it abroad. Now that one has an effect on the economy. If you take 5 or 4 billion every month out of the country, then what happens to the economics of that particular nation? This is money probably that would have gone to the hospital, would have gone to employ a domestic worker. It will have gone to probably buy a seed to plant more crop that will be able to generate within the economy. And it's good that the government has actually realized and is putting more its foot down on some of this kind of behavior, because betting does not follow the conventional dynamics of economics, of demands and supply. It gives an illusion. It's an illusionary kind of income that you are actually told you'll get this income if you put this, but then it's a chance, it's a game of chance. And in most cases, the house always wins. I think that's the rule in the betting world.
Yeah.
And I think that has a whole lot of effect on the economy when that money is not invested back in the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just see. Let me grab one thought here. Speaking of betting, actually, there's a study that says Kenyans bet more frequently than their fellow Africans, with most betting once every week. All right. So compared to Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ghana, South Africa, and Nigeria, Kenyans are the ones who are actually betting quite a bit. I don't know if we can get this on screen at this point, but maybe our time is far gone for it. But let me read some of the SMSs that we have coming in. Someone says, hey Joyce, digital loans are so bad. Like if you do not pay in time, the loan increases every day until you pay. Absolutely. Someone else says, hello Joyce, watching the show from Mombasa. I don't miss a single episode, and when I do, I always catch the repeat at 3 p.m. I love the topic. For me, I don't borrow from those apps. They are very costly, and people don't know that. I have a friend, or people don't know that. And then you say, I have a friend who borrowed from a certain app, and she stayed for like 5 days before paying, and the interest, oh my goodness, Joyce, it was very high. That's Irene watching us from Mombasa. Let me, now that we have it on screen, here's what I wanted to show you. This image right here, gentlemen, perhaps you can check it out on our screen there, that Kenyans bet more frequently than their fellow Africans. So if we're betting at least once a week, and we know that we are in a middle to lower income economy, most of the ones betting we know are much younger youth. It is possible that people are borrowing money every single week through digital credit platforms for this purpose.
You're right. You're right, because somebody down there will try and make money between Monday and Friday. Now that EPL is back, they'll try and save a bit of that money to try and make a kill over the weekend. So betting is not going to end in this country if we stop being lazy. If we don't stop being lazy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, if we don't stop
You can see
being
there, almost in Kenya, almost 30% of people who partake in this do it once a day. 30%. That's crazy.
I know people.
Yeah, young people.
Young people.
Guys, thank you so much for coming. Our time is up, but I think at the end of the day, our core point here is to say, as a consumer, you need to be very aware of what it is you're doing, what it is you're partaking in, what it is you're signing up for. So don't just, sign up for everything. Don't just give out your personal information. At the end of the day, that's actually money in someone else's pocket at your expense. So be very careful as far as how you handle your finances, how you borrow. And with that said, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about health resistance to antibiotics and why certain drugs are not working over a period of time. You can also look forward to us giving you some tips for kids at home during the holidays. All this and much more when we come back for our lifestyle hour here on Full Circle with Joyce. Stay tuned.